All right, well, welcome to the AIRstream. I am still having technical difficulties with audio. I had audio playing and it's not being sent. What am I doing wrong now? I got tunes playing right here, and it was coming through just a minute ago, but it's not coming through now. So I don't know what the deal is. Let's see, Mike. Aux. I've got to check all this nonsense. Everything was fine when I was setting up, and as soon as I hit live, go live, and it didn't. At least not the background beats portion of it. Let's see. Let's just monitor off. Desktop audio. I wonder if I need to turn this. Try that one. Nope, that's just the computer itself. And what is this? No, that's me. Don't need to monitor me. How come I only have 2 tracks? I had more than that coming through. Oh, this is oh so irritating and oh so strange. And I was trying to get my chat up running too, so I can see if anybody does say anything. I can't say anything yet. Just hold on a second. But I do want to get this music playing because that is frustrating. Let's see here. No, not that. Let me check this. Why does my mixer only have 1 channel? Do I need to add another source? Let's see. Audio input capture. Yes. Yes, add the source. Well, let's just call it that. We don't need to come up with a funny name for it. And it is... I don't want that too loud, but at least not too overpowering. Hopefully, there's my chat. All right, so I think we're all set. So I will go ahead and bring on the actual video. There we go. All right. Now we are live, and I think I got the music rolling properly. All right, I probably won't do as much conversation tonight as I normally do. I've done this once, and all of a sudden I have something that's identified what is normalcy. No, what I'm doing tonight is just drawing. Make sure I got all my erasers. Turns out I have more erasers than pencils, I think. At least I use more different types of erasers than using one single pencil, and I've got a ton of erasers. I've got the regular. These fun little things that you can buy that I've had used since high school. And of course I have the traditional artist gum eraser that you can, that's self-cleaning. They say it's self-cleaning. It's really not self-cleaning. It doesn't get clean. It just spreads the graphite around on the inside so you don't actually see it. But one of my favorites is this Tombow Mono Zero. And it is this tiny little, let me see if I can do it in this. You can see, so you sort of see it here. It's very tiny on that tip here. So you get really fine detail as far as that goes. So I use that quite often. And do I have any others? Well, yeah, I have a couple others. I have one of these erasers, this type of eraser. Use that a lot. In fact, I got a whole pile on here. I don't use this one as much because these are really messy. I don't like that. Now with this one, I have these 2. I think they're both Faber-Castell, or this is the only Faber-Castell. I'm not sure which this one is from, but this is more like basically the same material as these types of erasers. Enough about the erasing, but it is important to note that as an artist, you do make a lot of mistakes. So let's jump in and start drawing and listen to the sweet, sweet jams we have in the background. All right, let's see. So what I've been doing is I've been drawing this cover of this Spiderman magazine, comic book that I picked up a couple weeks ago. Now, it's nothing special. The art itself, nothing to write home about. It looks like a very an accomplished artist did something very quickly to all these comics that everything seems like a rush job. Everything is a rush job. Now the art on the inside actually looks pretty good, and I might go through and try drawing some of it later on. But for now, I'm just working on the cover, and I'm actually changing it just a tad so that you can see that, especially on the face here, that I'm going to put a heavy shadow on the side of the head, on the right side of his head and shoulder, whereas there is nothing like that here at all. And that's the thing about the colors and the tonality of this cover is interesting, only insofar as that it's very flat, that there's no high contrast, no chiaroscuro, as the Italian Renaissance would say. And that's the problem, the tonality, because the tonality between the figure and the background is so similar, they kind of blend into each other. He has you can sort of see some differentiation with the street, and of course he put the highlight, this strong highlight around the outside, the edge, pretty much all the way around. That's a pretty common feature with a lot of comic artists. It's more of a stylistic choice than realism, but that allows for, if you have a dark background, you can put like a strong highlight. Basically, it's like having a white outline on your figure instead of a black outline. Like you see some of the if you look on the inside of the comic itself, all of these, this is just black outline, the typical that you see in illustrations like this. You see a little more clearly with these, the black outline, that's typical. This is sort of a reversal of that by using a white outline. Lots of features as far as that goes. Well, anyways, I'm going to jump in here and start drawing. And I'm actually adding a darker shadow bottom of his leg. It has some of it here on this one, and it carries down just a tad there. But I'm going to actually increase that to increase the contrast, because I want to just ink this. I'm not going to color it. I'm going to ink it. I want to get done with it so I can move on to some other things. Not necessarily comic books. So there's all kinds of things I would like to be drawing as well that I will go ahead and draw later on. But tonight, I'm working on this right now. I want to get it done. Since I have it, I just want to get it done. All right. So the music in the background, I probably won't talk too much while I draw, just for concentration's sake, because that's just quite often it's hard to draw, and so I'll turn up the jams just a little bit. Just a tad there. Let that run in the background while I listen or not, whatever you like. All right, so now if I want to increase the shadow, so I'm adding this shadow. That's actually part of the let's see if it's all shadow. There. So I will be, in fact, be following that white outline, but I'm drawing it in for reference here. So, okay, I could just as easily do this when I think, but we won't do it now. As a guide to see where it is that I'm actually doing. I still haven't finished. I haven't finished his leg, and I certainly haven't finished drawing the left hand here, down here. I was in the process of doing that when I got all hung up on getting the live stream going, all the technical aspects that go along with that. And it turns out there's actually quite a bit of things, quite a bit of the technical end, the back end that you do not see, just to make all this happen. This simple, low detail video, because I'm using the camera in the computer, and then this, and also I'm not hardwired. I'm actually doing this over Wi-Fi, so that deteriorates the quality a little bit either. Either way, I'm just starting out. It's only my second time, but it will get better and better as I go, because it will take time to accumulate the proper equipment to make this a fantastic looking live stream. In the meantime, we're just going to draw and enjoy ourselves. As Bob Ross is known, the art of chill. Well, I'm really not that chill. I'm pretty high strung. It's just by nature, by desire, by design, certainly my work, having to be highly concentrating all the time in my current job. Now, this muscle, and I don't remember the name of it. I'm in the process of learning, as part of my training in the atelier, I have to learn the bone groups of my skull, and of course that'll eventually go on to learning the muscle groups and the individual muscles, specific muscles. But I have memorized at least the outward-facing bones of the human skull, so that's important. One of my favorite bones in the human skull is the cheekbones, the zygomatic bones here on the side, because they're actually, you can, if there was no meat here, you could hook your fingers down into it, where the jaw, the mandible goes up into it. So this is mandible. This is the maxilla, and then we have the left and right maxilla. We have, of course, the left and right nasal bone, the frontal occipital. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking because I'm trying to listen to music, and frontal occipital and frontal temporal occipital bone. I think that's right. Somebody correct me on my anatomy if I forgot. It's been a couple of days since I actually more than a couple of days studied. Let's see if we got some chat. Let's see. Grayson says, sometimes I'll have a different artist do covers versus the art on the inside. Especially, well, yeah, no, that's true. With the variant covers, of course, but also not even the variant covers. They'll actually quite often the interior artist who does all the pencils. For example, will have nothing to do with the cover. They'll just have a whole other artist do the cover because they're trying to maximize their time. If you get an artist to do the cover, get an artist to do the pencils, you get someone to write it, you get so you have the writer first, typically. Then you have the penciler, the colorist, and the inkist, and the inker. And of course, they're all given credits here. So we have the writer, artist, colorist, letterer. That's another one. Sometimes they have somebody who does the inks, and then someone totally different to do the lettering. So that's yeah. No, you're absolutely right about that. And this is to maximize the time, to create as many comic books in a month as possible. And the number of comics that are created a year, it's like 250,000 or something ridiculous like that. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And Kimberly asked about what's the tune. I'm actually using this is a company called Epidemic Sound. Epidemic Sound, as in it's diseased. But Epidemic Sound, they cater to streamers, YouTubers, and content creators, stuff like that. And basically, it's just you pay a subscription, you play all the music you want, and they have albums. You can pick individual songs, soundtracks, whatever. I'm just going through some of their latest albums, letting them play in the background because it'll just play through it. And when this gets through it, I'll go to another one, whatever. So one simple price per month, and boom, I've got all the music I need. Actually, some of it's good enough just to listen to it by itself, not just has background music in YouTube videos. But that's where that music is coming from. Epidemic Sound. I am not sponsored by them, although that would be super fine if they wanted to sponsor me, because I do enjoy their product. I've used it in the past for other things, my other videos. If you've seen my other videos and you've heard music, that's probably where it came from. But all right, back to focus on the art, because I will go off on a tangent and then it just. These are pretty large. I don't want to anatomically make it as possible. Now, the thing about the style of this this Spider-Man here is that it is most notably not angular, and there's a lot of art that is quite angular, and I think I tend to like that a little bit more. The inside, the penciler for this one does not is sort of or at least a blend of both the more curvaceous and the angular. Certainly, it has the more minimalistic feel that you would see with, say, manga or even anime, things like that, but with more of a Western Western style, Western feel, sort of a blend they're in. But this is quite Western in the style, and it's very. But there's a sloppiness to it, and I think that's what bothers me. There's a sloppiness to it. It has to do with the painting style. The paint, if you can look at the highlights especially, you can see that the paint went on very dry. He did not water this down to blend it or anything. So it's a very dry, I guess, a dry technique. There's wet techniques and dry techniques when it comes to painting. And it gives it... I don't want to say it's... I was going to say rustic, but almost a wildness to it. It's kind of an organic feel, I guess. But it just, I don't know, it's not quite working for me. But again, these things are always rushed. Sometimes they're very rushed. We don't know what went on behind this. But either way, I'm using as. At least it's definitely good enough to go ahead and draw it. I think. At least I have to say, the cover did catch my eye in the comic book store when I was sitting on the shelf, and I thought, well, that's good enough for the first time around as far as these videos go. But I know, Grayson, you had asked me last time about artists that I find influential. I do want to. I only mentioned the two, Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane. I think I was mixing up his name, Todd and Scott Campbell. Is that his name? No, Scott. I think that he's one of those. He does mostly covers. I think. I bet he does mix up. Some of those. One artist that I do, of course, Alex Ross. Alex Ross is excellent. I think he does primarily DC covers, DC art. And of course, there's Jorge Jimenez, who does. I really like his style. He's been doing Superboy or something. I want to get some of those comic books and draw those because he is definitely classically trained, very well, a superb artist. Jorge Jimenez, I follow him on Instagram and whatnot. Definitely want to emulate and learn from his style. It reminds me of this other book I have. I'll have to find it. I have quite a few art books I want to bring into, and I'll bring these on the stream, and we can look at those and go over, because those are some are excellent to practice drawing. Some of those drawings, I was doing that a few years ago, actually, and it was actually quite good. But quite educational. Either way, I'll get more names of those artists that influence. Oh, also Jake Parker as an illustrator. He does some graphic novels. He has a few. Skyheart is one of his graphic novels. I think he's done one, maybe working on a few more. I'm not sure. But he does primarily children's books. I think, but illustration in general is what he was the one that actually started the Inktober movement. So he's very influential as far as that goes. I do respect him very much. Then, of course, there's quite a few others. Can't think of any names off the top of my head. But either way, I'll mention those and hopefully just maybe even introduce y'all to some of their art as well in the future. And shoot, might as well just do some fan art of that, draw that. But anyways, I'm not getting much drawing here. I'm doing more talking than drawing. Either way, let's get back to it. All right, so we got the basic outline of the leg. Now, this leg is going to be mostly shadow, so I'm just going to figure out where I want to put these shadows. I think I'll just bring them down. I'm going to give this a little bit of a highlight until it's tucked right up underneath the calf, and then this will not be how much of these should. So I was trying to gauge. It's one of the techniques, of course, is trying to think three-dimensionally, and that is the one of the key aspects of a very important skill for art, is being able to think three-dimensionally about what you're doing. That helps to, of course, make sense of the foreshortening. It's like, why is this hand so huge? Why is this foot so huge compared to his head? You know, foreshortening perspective. But this is more of an improvised type perspective, because there is no real measurement going into the actual width of, say, the hand compared to the head, because we're assuming it's so many inches away or anything like that, something like that. This has to do with thinking like a cinematographer, and lenses, the lensing effect of different focal lengths that will affect, from the fisheye effect going very extreme to a telephoto lens where everything looks flat and right on top of each other, that sort of thing. And these are the things that are thought about, of course, an artist must think about when going through and planning a comic book or whatnot. Quite often, this is very important for artists who do illustrators, who do storyboards for movies, shows, things like that. When they're trying to think through the individual shots, they're thinking as a cinematographer. At least they should be, you would think, to come up with the shots. And that's that book on inking that I have. That it was written by somebody who does a lot of storyboards for movies, and he was really good stuff. I was trying to go through that to learn. It really talking about blocking in your image, lights and darks, and things like that. How to play with the shadow and light in a very stark way, just thinking very sort of extreme hyperbolized, exaggerated type of the exaggeration to increase the drama. And that's sort of what I was kind of doing with the head with this figure, just trying to add more shadow. Not very well, but I'm going to do it anyways, at least trying to. All right, yeah, back to drawing. I'm trying to figure out where to put the shadow. I'm trying to imagine the light source coming in from this direction, and then the light over here, it's going to the leg. Actually, I should probably bring the shadow up over. So bring this here. Pull the curvature down and over. And this is a way of, it's almost using shadow to add a contour line, a topography of the leg. That one of the lessons in my atelier was about, we had to draw an arm, and then we had to draw these topographical lines to show, so that we're imagining it as a three-dimensional object on a two-dimensional page. And you can use shadow to give the viewer, to emphasize that to the viewer, so they can really, so someone who say has an untrained eye could better imagine the three-dimensionality of the figure that you've drawn. So I think I'll do that. And as these sort of lines, these rhythms going back around, playing off of each other, pulling the figure, taking on life of their own. And so we need more. So probably have a shadow as well over this muscle, over the top here. And just wrap it right around the leg here. And all of that sort of hit the shadow. So let me just go ahead and fill this in. Well, I hope everyone is enjoying the show while I draw, because I really should be doing the dishes. So I'll probably be up late. After I get through with the stream, I'll have to go do the dishes. But do not worry, I won't have to bore you with that. That'll be my time to listen to a podcast or something like that while I'm doing the dishes. I do enjoy that. And I recommend whenever you have free time, if you are unable to, say, have an open book, and you cannot read, just if you have a few minutes and try to read, always have a podcast ready to go. You should always be learning. There's plenty of podcasts about art. Of course, podcasts about all kinds of other things. It's amazing how much there is to know, and how much understanding you can acquire just by hearing from someone else's point of view. Because the fact of the matter is, you can be given a number of facts about anything, but the facts they don't give you an interpretation. Facts do not interpret themselves. But sometimes we don't have the skills to properly interpret something, so you need to hear it from an expert, whatever the case may be. So I like to, whenever I have a free moment, I always have podcasts ready. A lot of them, I podcast stream on iTunes. On my iPhone, I often don't listen to everything. Can't get to everything. There's only so much time in the day. But if you don't have a book handy, you should definitely have something audible. Something to listen to, whatever it may be. But choose them wisely. Don't just pick anything. Just because you happen to be talking about a fascinating topic, it may not be worth your time. But anything you want to learn, that's a good way to do it, because it's sort of a passive learning, so you have to invest too much energy. And I like that. So I can pick up a lot of information without, I don't necessarily remember everything, but it does, almost by osmosis, it starts to set in. I remember, okay, so I think that, it's about right for the shadow on the leg. And the lyrics. Shadows. What song is this? This is called Forever Now. Forever Now.
Spotlight from my cell phone. Sounds like it's your ringtone.
I haven't. Let me check back with the comments. I haven't seen that yet. See, Grayson was saying that. See, it's more rushed and sloppy looking because it's a video game tie-in. So yes, yeah. I mean, it's definitely The whole video game tie-in thing is going to. It's not a priority. It's not their bread and butter, but it is a. Yeah, I know. I totally agree. On the Dexter Soy, did make Batman armor. Okay, I'll have to look at that. I haven't seen that artwork yet. Dexter Soy, I don't remember that name. Yeah, Alex Ross. Grayson, you and I, it sounds like we have a lot of same tastes, I think, in artwork. But really, it's hard not to like Alex Ross. It's just really good. See, what kind of pens do I use? All right, well, just as for lack of experience, I started out and I bought this. This is a set of Copic markers, and they're not markers, but Copic multi-liners. These are the multi-liners, and it's it goes from a brush. It has a brush pin in it, and it goes from 0.7 millimeters all the way down to 0.03 millimeters, different increments. So I can get very fine line. Now, a professional would be using a brush pin like this. And let's see if you can see the brush. So this has a brush on it. So it acts much like a traditional, let's say, a Chinese or Japanese brush, traditional calligraphy type pen, but it's smaller, far smaller than those to use when going for traditional East Asian calligraphy. With the Copic multi-liners, because the tips are set to a certain size, it's easier for us, less accomplished artists, to draw a nice, thin, exact line without it, because the technique for inking is something I didn't spend a lot of time developing when I was younger. So that's something that I'm lacking, that I need to develop. So I use the multi-liners to help me stay focused on nice sharp lines and whatnot. But I'll be using those, and you'll get to see how I use those. Nothing special. I'll just put in my hand and I draw a straight line. But the technique is it does give you at least a prelude, a preview of what it's like to actually use a brush pen, which is totally different, because you can you have to be very careful. You cannot use the page as resistance to guide so much. The way with a pencil, I can rest the actual tip of the pencil on it, and I can use that to help with the resistance of the page and drag the pencil, and not have to worry about pressure too much. Pressure with a pen, however, is extraordinary, extraordinarily important, and something you have to pay extreme attention to. It requires a lot of concentration, especially when you're trying to develop that skill. Let's see, so I've been rubbing against this page so much the lines are disappearing. Pretty typical. Getting graphite all over your fingers, all over here. Kind of a rite of passage for artists. Eventually, you come to love it. It's a I semi-permanent tattoo, depending on how long it takes you to wash your hands, but it actually adds to the visceral enjoyment of art. Actually, because it's something that you can only really get when you're engaged in the process, in the act of art. See, when I was trying to draw this earlier, as in days ago, this foot was giving me a lot of trouble because I didn't want to copy the same styles of it, because it's very I didn't like that it was so cartoony. This exaggeration of the foot. I felt that sort of he was trying to blend several styles, like more of a realistic look, and then this almost cartoony, exaggerated illustration style that I really wasn't feeling. But I haven't been able to get the foot right, especially with the perspective that I'm exaggerating. I think I'm exaggerating the perspective on the foot a little bit. Usually, just not quite working for me, but it's important. That's a little better, I think. It looks, looking at the screen of this drawing, the foot looks even worse than it does on the page here. So I'll just not gonna work too much. At least not right now. It's certainly not the most important thing of the figure. But I do want to get these shadows here. So those go down over the ankle, and the shadows right here. So again, using the shadows to emphasize the shape and the dimension. Backlighting that gives the, so essentially we're treating the white outline as a it's a raison d'etre, it's a backlighting. So we got 3 more songs on this album, then we'll cut to something else. Let's see. So a slight backlighting on this. Reflective or reflected light following the calf muscle here. Keeping the light source in mind and drawing shadows. I've read a lot of comic books where you have these, what I would call cliches, not in a bad way, but these repeated occurrences of different types of, different methods, I should say, methods of art and how applying, say, in this case, this would be considered the core shadow right here. So we have the light source coming this way, and then the core shadow is right where the light meets the dark, and then you have the shadow of the shadow behind it. Now I've seen a lot of comic book illustrators where they'll use this same technique, but it'll have no relationship whatsoever to any legitimate light source in the picture of the drawing. So, which is fine because this is illustration. You do have a lot of there is a lot of leeway to do that, but it sort of becomes a cliche because it's done the same way every time, and that is it's excusable. It doesn't really bother me, but other than it's noticeable, and I want to try not to become that, where I fall back on these habits there are certain, I guess, micro habits, like we call it, that is the developed, that I guess I'm trying to think of the right word for this. I want to say developed style, but it's actually defined style. Whatever your style is, there are these micro habits that you can't quite put your finger on what it is, with these little techniques that you might do, these habits in your art, whatever, not necessarily art, it could be anything you happen to, whatever your avocation or vocation happens to be. The way you do something is influenced by style, and the style is defined by micro habits. Well, sometimes the micro habits become very large, and that starts to affect. They draw attention to themselves, and I don't want to have those micro habits that, while I want my own style, I don't want the micro habits to dominate or call attention to themselves. They're supposed to serve style, not overshadow. And I was thinking after I'm drawing this relatively close to the contoured style, curvaceous style of this drawing. I kind of want to go back and do this one again, but with a more angular style. See if I can pull that off, make it a little more, just to try the same subject matter, but do so with a different approach to a different style. Let's see. Good evening. Oh, welcome. How is Korea? How are you? Good to see you. Well, I can't see you. I hope it's good to see me on this live stream. I hope you're doing well. It's so good to hear. I always love hearing from my old students, wherever they may be in the world. Kim was saying, today you ordered a drawing monitor. Oh, for his 16th birthday. Well, don't let him see this. I don't want to spoil it. Don't spoil the surprise. He's getting really into graphic arts and he wants to be an architect. Wow. Wow, that's fantastic. A friend of mine I met in Korea, one of my co-teachers, he studied architecture, but he was kind of turned off to architecture, not because he didn't love art. He still loved art, still drew, but the actual hours working in the office, an architectural office, they're very long and perhaps unrewarding as far as not a lot of attaboys that go around because it seems like a high stress job. But that's don't let that be detrimental or dissuade you from doing anything or anyone from doing something if they love it that much. I think my friend, he wasn't interested in. I don't want to read his mind. I don't know why he wasn't, because he still loved art, still loved to draw. I think maybe he was just more in love with the idea of drawing. He just loved drawing more than architecture, but he was fascinated. Probably he was technically minded as well, so that seemed like a logical choice when he saw. But I've heard some horror stories from architecture. So I do not blame him whatsoever for not going into architecture, because some experiences are just terrible, stressful. You have no life, things like that. It's kind of, I mean, why would you want if you want to make your art your profession, you don't want that to destroy your desire to draw. So you have to be very careful about things, and the thing is, even with illustration, people don't want to have to try to make illustration a career because it's so difficult. You may be working on your own. I've listened to stories from different illustrators and podcasts, and they're talking about their career and whatnot. And when they're first starting out, it's very hard. Very stressful. You're drawing things that you have no interest in. And of course, starting as an architect, you're going to be drawing buildings that you probably have no interest in because it was designed by another architect. And it's just your job just to, recreate copies or whatever. And it's like, well, that can be mind-numbing quite often. And it just saps the desire to create. So I count myself fortunate that art is not my career. At least not right now anyways. But that I can do this and pick and choose exactly how I spend my time and energy. I have not used tablets, a drawing tablet like that, so I can't speak to the efficaciousness of that as far as learning. But if he's really into it, I would encourage but don't push. That would be my as a former teacher. Because if you are more excited about it than he is, then that might squelch the desire a little bit, because part of it is using art to define yourself, your identity, your individuality. So you don't want that. You don't want to make it feel like you're heavily invested in that, because then it won't feel like he can make it his own. And so he needs to be able to make it his own. So that's a tough balance, especially for parents, because quite often children do not listen to parents. But if they have an influential teacher in their life, they'll more likely listen to that, because it's more of a third party, someone on the outside. Not that it's just the way people are, not just children, people. But yeah, now I think that I wish somebody would buy me one. Get down to that right there. But yeah, digital art is definitely a great way to go. The demand, of course, for that is definitely very high. All graphic artists, all illustrators, all the ones that I know of, even if they started out decades ago, they have been forced to learn how to do digital art, because even these comic books are done digitally. Quite often, if we can look at this on the inside, even if this was penciled by hand, this has been scanned into a computer, and the quite often colorists will use their computers to color the entire thing, especially with these specialized fonts and things like that. I mean, the odds are this entire thing might have been created on a computer and never once touched the light of day, in the analog light of day. So it's it's everywhere, and it's used in every industry, in every way, at least every genre of art. You're going to have that digital aspect to it. One of those artists I mentioned earlier, Jake Parker, he will actually. There's different ways of going about it. Of course, there's some artists that just love to do everything analog, look at everything on pencil, paper, ink, stuff like that. There's some that do nothing but digital. However, the album is over. I'm sorry, I'll get back to my point in just a minute and jump to the album section. I should have had one lined up. Let's see. Where is the genres? Let's see. Let's try this one. Your travel essentials. Now we'll go with this. Jake Parker will actually draw his sketches on the computer and then print them out. And once he gets the sketch and the design and of course the layouts, the whatever it is, gets the composition the way he wants it, and then he will print it out and then go over it by hand, inking and coloring and stuff like that. So, which is kind of quite often people, some artists they'll pencil it in by hand, and then they'll scan in their penciling, and in the computer go in, they'll ink it and color it and stuff like that. So it's different processes and stuff like that. Goodine, let's see. You remember Iron Man? Yes, I do remember. I still have a picture of that in my computer somewhere. But yeah, you still have the picture. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you for saying that. I miss you guys. Miss you and all the classes I had there. But if the fact that you can see this on Facebook, see me drawing, at least I can draw for you guys again some more. So maybe get some more for you. And if you still are in contact with any of the old students, tell them I said hello. Otherwise, I hope you're doing well. Let's see, Kim, you're saying you're not sure if he has the self-discipline to think. Well, we're talking about children here. They don't have the self-discipline to do much of anything. That's just not in their nature. But it's about learning. He is learning more towards leaning more towards architectural design. That's good. I also very technical. Yeah, I have a feeling artists with a little bit of a technical aspect will oftentimes be attracted to architecture. I remember when I was drawing comics, I used to get. I know I have a technical bit because I'm a programmer now. I'm a coder, so I like the technical stuff, and I really enjoyed drawing the buildings for the backgrounds of some of my drawings. I really love the technicality of perspective and sort of the mathematicalness of perspective, and when you have multi-point perspective, what you can do with that, I enjoy that. So I can definitely appreciate and commiserate with his desire to do the technical stuff. I plan to take cybersecurity course. Oh, look at that! Community college during yes, that'll be fun. Cybersecurity is a burgeoning, growing field. Every company, just like web development, every company has a website, and they have web apps and stuff like that they need. They also need security. The problem is a lot of companies don't realize how much security they actually need, because it's more of a matter of fix it after the fact. They just it's trying to convince companies how important security is. It's sometimes tough, but nevertheless, that is excellent. Glad to hear. I would recommend definitely going, because I learned my coding. I went to a coding boot camp. I did not learn it in college. If you can avoid college, I'm just going to say avoid it. The fact of the matter is, depending on what your actual degree is when you go to college, it's typically not worth it. It's not worth your time. It's not worth the money. I wasted way too much money doing something that I allowed myself to be convinced of the lie that college would actually amount to something. What college prepared me for, vocationally speaking, paid almost zero compared to what the coding boot camp has trained me to. My monetary worth, vocationally speaking, is. So I would definitely, if he wants to go into cybersecurity of some kind, he'll definitely need to learn some coding. I would recommend a coding boot camp, because some of them do specialize or have emphases on security and that sort of thing. So I would definitely look into that route. Basically, coding boot camps are just trade schools now. Glorified trade schools with a fancy name, but the one I went to, I definitely highly recommend. I really, really liked it. They were very good, because they're more interested in actually teaching than, say, making money. A lot of these coding boot camps, they are just while you can and will get a good education from them, they just feel more like a pet project of an entrepreneur and not somebody who's actually interested in teaching. But the one I went to it was founded by a teacher who just naturally, he was a coder, of course, but he just had a natural gift for educating people. That's why he was always. Well, I don't want to go into his history. It's not important. You can tell he was a very good teacher, and I really enjoyed watching his videos and stuff like that, because I did it all online. That's a great way to do it. So you can, because of the interwebs, you can get almost any kind of education online without ever leaving your home. I am a big proponent of that new approach to education. And not just trade schools, higher education, college, but also high school. You can do high school. In fact, you can do elementary school all the way up through high school online with some companies, which is fantastic. Let's see. Let's see. I'm sure you're an artist. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Green. Let's see. I'm glad to see your painting again. I make themes for college. Oh, Korean in language and literature. Very good. Oh, that's fantastic to hear. I hope you are enjoying that. Well, Green, what are you hoping to do with? Do you want to be a teacher, a professor of literature? That would be fantastic. Let's see. Grayson says, out of all the arts that you've done, is there one drawing that you're just exceptionally proud of? Yes, there is. And it was, yes, it's the one in my avatar. I put in my Facebook avatar, and I think I put it on the other avatar, something like that. It was a pencil drawing, a graphite drawing of the Libyan Sibyl from the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. And it was, I drew it on my closet door. The closet door is about a little over 6 feet high, so it's very tall. I mean, not as big as the one at the Sistine Chapel. However, that was probably my crowning achievement. And after I did that, I kind of just backed away from art. I went on with other things. I felt, perhaps deep down psychologically, I felt that I had reached a pinnacle. I had mastered something. And because it was very accurate to the original as far as graphite goes, it wasn't painted, it wasn't fresco. And I think I felt like I'd achieved something with my art. So all that practice, all the drawing that I did finally amounted to something worthwhile. And maybe just deep down, I just wanted to move on to something else. But maybe I was just afraid to keep pursuing it. I don't know. But either way, I'm not afraid now. So whatever my reasons were at the time for stopping, I am going to override that feeling and send them to the fiery pits and continue my art and get back. So I'm definitely rusty compared to where I was back then, and that I could do something that well, copy something that well, and I miss being able to do that. I miss being superb at something, excellent at something, at least as excellent as my mind will allow me to be, whatever the extent that is. I always encourage everyone, whatever it is you want to do, try to get as good as you can at whatever it is. I remember one time, my neighbor's father, I had brought this video over of this congalero, Giovanni Hidalgo, plays congas from Puerto Rico, I believe, and he was a virtuoso on congas, of all things. It was just masterful, effortless, flawless the way he played, so incredibly fast and so just smooth and everything with his playing, his rhythms and stuff. And I brought the video over, and we were watching it. I was watching with my friend who's a pianist, and his father was in the room, and he made this comment about there's something about watching the best in the world at anything. And that statement has always stayed with me, that whatever it is somebody does, if they are the best in the world, I mean, anything, any kind of work, the best street sweeper, the best Zamboni driver, there's something about watching the best, or at least somebody who has achieved this level of expertise that is just almost unimaginable, that it's just fascinating to watch, whatever it is, because you can see the genius coming through in that whatever aspect that is. And so whatever it is that you have to do, you should be striving to do it to such excellence, because that excellence brings beauty into the world. It amplifies beauty in creation. And that is something we ought to be doing It's amplifying viewing, amplifying the superb, the excellent, and the wonderful. So, I definitely have, I guess, regret about letting it, and about letting myself lapse in that ability that I could have been, at least, not that I can't in the future become great at this, but that I did not pursue it earlier and become greater sooner. So, that is something. All right, let's see. Well, let me take a quick break for just a second. I need some water. My throat is starting to go dry. So hold on one second. I'm going to put on the Be Right Back slide. So I will be right back.
evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard. Once you have located your seat, we ask you that you please step out of the aisle so the passengers behind you can pass you. This will expedite our boarding process.
Testing, 1, 2. Oh my gosh, it was awful. Oh, technology. My mic was off. Dang it. Okay, I didn't really say anything important. All right, so let's see. Let me go back. So since I came back, I was talking about... talking about pencil. This is not a pencil. This is a lead holder, totally different. I was talking about holding technique. When you're holding your pencil like this, you get nice sweeping angles. When you're holding it like this, like you're normally writing a utensil, you get a finer motor's control over, and you can get into detail, that sort of thing. It's all pretty much all I was covering. Some other things, and I forget. So, but I'm sure whatever it was I was talking about will come up in later streams. Just the same idea. So don't worry if you miss anything, because I don't even remember now. I'm sure I will later. Then I'll bring it up next time. Sorry about that. More conscious, more alert, more aware of that I muted the mic when I went on break. Anyways. It is just after 10 o'clock on the Pacific Standard Daylight, or whatever it is. So I think we're going to change that, I hope, soon. So I've been streaming for an hour. Thank you all for who have been watching.
You want to leave this place where we grew up. This old town, just put it all behind. Remember you and I would always find somewhere to hide when we were kids, so we could see and hear the water run. The river's gonna cry when you're gone.
I'm trying to draw the
you miss the ones you know. I'll be here, hanging on, waiting for your call. Seems like time as a wave passing by, leave a mark in our marks to turn to memories. The river's gonna cry when you're gone.
Hopefully in the future I won't have a problem with the microphone, because I was doing it using software to mute the mic. I need to get a mixer, just a simple little mixer, so I can plug the mic and everything into it, and I just hit boop, mute on the mixer, and then I can see the light. So that's what I'm used to as an audio engineer. That's what I'm used to. But again, this stream is a work in progress. It's still in its infancy, and hopefully it'll be more professional soon. I didn't spend a lot of time on the bottom of the shoe. This is worth thinking three-dimensionally, so they can come in handy to make this look proper, because of all the technology that is applied to his foot in this uniform to allow him to stick to all. Kind of turned his foot a little bit. Now these are the little differences are actually consequential, unless you're trying to go for hyper realism. And there's a book that I'm reading, sort of a art philosophy book by Omri. Oh my gosh, what's his first name? Robert? Yeah, I think it's Robert Omri. And talking about style, and that he actually spoke very much against going for hyper-realism. That by doing so, you're in effect sterilizing, in my words, sterilizing the art. That it's just it's a photographic representation. That there's no personality. There's nothing of the artist really that's a part of it. Now, of course, photographers would disagree, which is photography, but one of my favorite quotes regarding photography, I think, which was with H.L. Mencken said it, or was it Mencken? Then it would have been Malcolm Muggeridge, maybe. I'm not sure. One of those, something that starts with an M. Talking about photography, what he spoke against photography very, very loudly, very strongly against photography, as it's what it does. It makes fantasy out of reality. And so I think what he was trying to say was sort of that photography is deception. That there's something deceptive about photography, making fantasy out of reality. And that, and I actually see his point. But I still hold to that anything and everything that just about anything and everything that humankind may endeavor to do is morally neutral. And that photography is morally neutral. It's what you do with it. I think, but he's probably concerned that it just, by its very nature, its nature was to deceive somehow. Because we think we're looking at reality. Because we're looking at a photograph. It's supposed to be just a direct representation of that which is in front of it. That's what the reality before it, in the light coming into the lens. But in fact, it's well sculpted. So it tricks us into thinking that's what we are actually seeing reality, when in fact we're not. We're seeing a reality warped into a form of fantasy. And nowadays we just call that the art of photography. But we do have to realize that it is not reality. Even though it is a photographic representation of reality, it is not reality. And I think people really don't know that, don't see it as such. They just see it as beautiful pictures or interesting or disturbing photographs of something, whatever the subject matter is. But it's not reality. And that's the interesting thing. So Robert Henri talking about hyper-realistic paintings, that it's not something a true artist should be trying to do, because of it is so sterile. It has no there's nothing about the artist in the painting, in the artwork. It's almost, and as much as I love, well, I should say love, as much as I like hyper-realistic art for just the technique, really. I mean, it's an exercise in technique and skill. I agree with him that there is something lacking, severely lacking in hyper-realism. There's a humanity that's often lacking in that. And I feel as though the artist is hiding behind that hyper-realism, hiding their personality behind the hyper-realism, so that their true personality doesn't have to show through. They don't have to risk revealing themselves in the art, because it can be terrifying, because other people are looking. The more that you come through in your art, the more at risk you're sort of placing yourself emotionally. Well, let's see. It is after 10 here, and I've been streaming for over an hour, so I think that's a good, long stream for the first sort of official, non-official, soft grand opening, whatever you want to call this. And I can get some art done, some drawing done. So, that's a good thing. Talked almost the entire time. Now my hair is all sore and dry. So, I will go ahead and wrap this up. Since listening to ocean waves, to wind down and end this stream. So, thank you all for watching, and thank you all for, if you happen to catch this in the replay, thank you for watching. Until next time, I will see you here on the AIRstream. And let me bring up the ending. There we go. All right. So, see, the sound doesn't come through. So I'm going to have to change. I need to change some settings because the audio isn't coming through anymore on this. Let's see if I can do this right now, because I kind of wanted it to, maybe this will be too hard for right now. No, I don't know what I'm doing. This is too complicated. Anyways, thanks for watching. I will see you next time.